So what's going on here?
Hi, everybody. We have Evan here with us today. We love Evan, and I'm so honored to have him because he's so open and a terrific young adult that will help shed some light on what young adults are going through today that we as parents really need to understand, because our generational differences are quite big given the internet and everything that's going on today in their world versus ours back then. So just wanted to start out today talking about, what these guys are going through. And you're 25?
25.
And you went to University of California, Berkeley, which is my alma mater, so I love you even more. Was an incredible athlete, is an incredible athlete, played water polo for Berkeley. And, just on the outside, on paper, amazing human being.
Thank you.
The good part is on the inside it is even better. So because he's so open and such a loving heart, we just really appreciate you coming today and
thank you for having me.
talking to us about what's going on. So
happy to.
give me, let's go back to high school. So, junior year in high school, other than girls, what was going on in your world?
It was just all getting into college and, dealing with adolescence.
What pressures were you feeling?
Maintaining a status, social media comes into play there. How you appear on social media, it's definitely, it was a huge pressure in high school to appear the way that you wanted others to perceive yourself. That, along with the pressures of getting into the right college, the best college, being competitive with everyone else, and getting into the right school and fitting in. It's a very, very tough time in your life.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure,
Yeah. I remember that even back in my day, but
Yeah.
it was so much slower back in our day compared. I mean, it was, a lot of pressure for us too, but more so than ever before. And you're a sociology major, so I'd love to kind of understand what you learned once you got into college, and you're still carrying with you this pressure, internal pressure, but also external pressure from, society saying that you need to go to that good college. Tell us a little bit more about what it was like to get to Berkeley, playing for one of the best teams in the country, doing fraternity stuff, trying to create a social life, have a girlfriend, tell us a little bit what that was like.
It was all too much. Between all of the factors that you just mentioned, it wasn't about how much sleep I got the night before. It was how much sleep I could get in 24 hours. When I wasn't in practice or class or eating, it's a
that's important.
Yeah. I was, taking a nap, getting ready for my next class or practice, and there was, it was hard to have fun. And, you see all these other kids on social media or, in person, having a lot more fun than you, and it's hard not to compare yourself to them.
Right.
And so to find yourself in college, it was, for me at least, it was really tough, and I had to drop one of those things, and that for me was water polo, which was really hard because it was something that defined me growing up. But I realized that having a social life, getting better grades, and amongst those other things were more important than continuing a career in water polo.
Did you feel like, because water polo was such a part of your identity, did you feel lost when you made that decision, or did you feel free? Or
Great question. One of the hardest decisions in my life because I felt like I was letting a lot of people down, ex-coaches, family members, but you know, sometimes you got to think for yourself. You got to think for numero uno, and it was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and I began to really discover who I was without water polo, which was something that I had, you know, for so long, and discover a whole new different side of myself.
Right, which is amazing because I think that takes a lot of self-reflection and the ability to really listen to your inner world as opposed to the outer world. And so you're, to me, unusual in that way because a lot of these kids are just hungry for that approval from the outside world, and understandably so, because we don't know, you know, when you're a baby, you're constantly wanting love, right? We're all going towards that, seeking that pleasurable experience, you know, and so it's kind of cool that you were able to be like, this is not healthy for me, this is not good, it's really not making me happy. Right. So
and then that approval, it followed me actually, and it translated into, you know, social matters. You know, I feel like with teens or, you know, college kids too these days, there's something called FOMO, fear of missing out, and that's a big thing. And
capital FOMO.
Yeah.
FOMO. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, when I was, I joined a fraternity, and if I didn't feel like going to an event or something like that, well, there was a huge amount of FOMO, and I found myself going to events I didn't want to go to just to maintain a certain social status. And it wasn't until I graduated and I looked back and I was just like, that's completely wrong. That, you know, I felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, again, that takes self-reflection to be able to even think like that. Most people just go through life and they're just like, I gotta have this thing it's totally intangible and never gonna satisfy you. So you stopped all that madness and really tell us about that transformation that you kind of are. I mean, we're all transforming constantly, but like the big shift for you, like where was it that, because you said you told us earlier that you were a little down and feeling lost, and you know, I just wanted to hear about that experience.
Okay. Well, I had an internship my sophomore year in LA as a social media manager for professional athletes through a sports marketing firm. And after that, I was just like, this is awesome. This is exactly what I want to do. And I was kind of living a lie. And it wasn't until after I graduated and my uncle took me out to a surf trip out in the islands, which is kind of a tradition of ours to do. And on the way back, we assisted in a Coast Guard rescue. The helicopter made it to a boat which their anchor wasn't working, so they're going back into a cave. And so they used our boat to help bring the people on board to our boat. And during that rescue, I felt a feeling that I'd never felt before. And it wasn't adrenaline. I know what an adrenaline rush feels like from, you know, being a lifelong competitor and, you know, surfing. And this was something else. And it was the feeling of helping others. And I realized on that boat trip back, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to help people. And excuse me. So I narrowed down the jobs on the way back, and there was military, sheriff, firefighter, and Coast Guard. And I thought about all the plus and minuses of those jobs. And, yeah, I've decided to, that is actually my passion, and that, it wasn't towards social media. I was projected to go towards, a city that I didn't particularly like and work in an industry I didn't exactly really truly believe in, but I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
So
it didn't align with what you value.
Yeah, exactly. So my advice is, don't get set on something so early. Go explore, and go find out what you truly love and what your passion truly is.
Yeah. And I mean, you're just putting yourself out there, trying all these different things, but the underlying thing that you've discovered is that what makes you feel the happiest is when you're helping other people.
Absolutely.
And that's funny because Tony Robbins, one of my mentors, always says the secret to living is giving.
Absolutely.
So if we can all kind of tune into what it is, how we love to give to other people, what are the ways that we love to give and help other people, I think that is, that's where the joy is. Yeah. And I think a lot of these kids your age are thinking the joy is somewhere off in the distance when they arrive at some destination, and you're saying the destination is your inner world and how you love to give.
Absolutely.
So that was your big shift.
Yes. Huge shift. Completely changed my life from there on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's that journey been like from that day to where you are today? And how long ago was that?
That was almost a year ago exactly, actually. It was right after I graduated. I'll take you back a little bit. Right after I graduated, I was a little bit insecure that it took me 5 years instead of 4 to finish. So I felt the pressure from my peers who are already in the workforce to get a job right away. So every day I woke up and it was making my LinkedIn profile perfect, sending the perfect emails with, every word being looked at 5 times.
Yeah.
It's in the right placement. Mm-hmm. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No,
that's all right. No,
yeah,
that's going. We're going with it.
I love this perfection. This perfection thing is a really good theme that I want to go into, because I think that's one of the huge things.
Right.
And not being able to make mistakes.
Right. So I started to exile my loved ones, my friends, family, girlfriends, and just focus on, like I said, perfecting, LinkedIn profiles and, the emails, and it just wasn't the correct way of living. And I really lost sight of, my loved ones and what I loved in life.
What do you think you were going for?
I was going for what people wanted me to be, and
or what you thought people wanted.
What I thought people wanted me to be, and what I saw other people doing, mm-hmm. and kind of following the herd rather than following what I wanted to do.
Following your heart, following your soul, following that thing that is so different for all of us.
Right, absolutely.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And then once this happened out at the Channel Islands with my uncle, I just started looking into the different jobs that I named off of, and first it started with the sheriffs, and then I changed my mind about that, and then it became the fire service, and now I've decided that before I want to go into the fire service, that I want to enlist in the Navy in the SWCC program.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a special warfare craft combatant crewman. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's basically if SEALs were to be Batman, we're the Robin.
That's good.
Yeah. We extract them from sticky situations and speedboats.
Wow.
And yeah.
Their right-hand man.
Yeah, so I've been training for that, and that's something I've wanted to do since I was 16, but I put it on the back burner because I didn't really think it was a possibility or something like that.
That's interesting. So why didn't you think it was a possibility? Or did you,
It's just kids from Santa Barbara, you don't really hear of them leaving and, going off for 5-6 years and doing these things. And once again, it's one of those following the herd kind of deals. And I was just like, why do I need to follow the herd? I want to go do my own thing.
Right.
And, enlisting and, doing my service to my country is very important to me. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's tough to tell your family you're going to leave them for, 5 to 6 years, if not longer. But
Big
once
decision.
again, you got to think for yourself.
Yeah.
And
You have one of your best friends is an Air Force pilot. No, he's not a pilot.
he's a PJ, so he's pretty similar actually. He does rescues for the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, so that's right.
Yeah, and then Wes Powell is 82nd Airborne Division, and he's over in the Ukraine right now. So yeah.
So you got some pals doing some big things too.
Yeah.
Big service.
Yeah.
For our country.
One of my best friends, Carter McManigal, his brother Tyler, he's a Navy diver. He's been a big mentor to me.
Great
helping
mentor.
me out. Yeah, helping me get prepared for the tests and everything. And yeah, it's exciting news.
So it sounds like you have created a vision for how you want your life to go, and we've talked about, before today, we've talked about your values and what you getting to know who you are through what do I really value, and then creating this vision for yourself. And now you have these specific steps that you are going to take. So how does that make you feel, having that clarity and that, vision and, listening to yourself? Like, where are you today compared to where you were?
The happiest I've ever been.
Confidence.
Clarity, confident. It's definitely life changing. I mean, I dealt with a lot of insecurities, anxiety, in college.
So many people feel all of that.
And once you really find yourself and what you're passionate about, all those things begin to disappear.
Yeah.
And you build steps, and it's think of it as like your top goal is at the top of Mount Everest. Well, it may look high from below, but if you break it up into steps, then you achieve a step here, a step there, you get closer to Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And you're eventually going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vision, visualization, just breaking it down to little bite sizes.
Execution.
Yeah.
And you feel, and every little goal that you hit, you feel them much better. Yeah.
Well, so as parents, because most of these people watching today are parents of kids who are struggling to find themselves, or they're feeling all those same feelings that you were feeling, and probably still feel them from time to time because you're a human being.
Yeah.
But you have stepped into, your courage and your path, your vision, and it just alleviates a lot of that internal angst, I believe. And so, as a young adult, what advice would you give to parents, that have a student that, or a young adult that are, struggling? What can we do to support our young adults who are feeling all these feelings? Because I think a lot of it, like you said, has to do with comparisons and social media and the perfect social media, image, which is all phoney.
Right.
And you've done a lot of studies on social media and all that.
About that.
Please go on and on, but I am curious as to, if you do go on and on about it, which we'd love, also how can we support? Because we didn't have that, so we don't understand it. I mean, we put stuff out there and it's awkward and weird, but we don't care that, because we're like, oh, I think I posted it right, I think it's right there, and just a cute picture of your kids or whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you want me to start with, social media or with, helping your kids.
Either one, whichever you.
Well, okay, so social media to me is just like anything, and use it in moderation. I think it does a lot of good, and it does equally, if not more, just a lot of evil. It helps promote business. I mean, like for example, let's say you promote your business on social media, and a kid struggling with anxiety or depression finds you. Okay, well that's great. That's amazing. That benefits the society. However, a bunch of people compare themselves to other people on social media. I mean, going back to LinkedIn, I was constantly like looking at my peers and being like, oh my gosh, they're so much more professionally
put
together than I am, and like it was discouraging.
And just on a side note, I'm sure all of our parents watching just are like, are you kidding? You look like the picture perfect kid. You really look like you didn't have. I mean, we would laugh, being
right.
Looking at you, thinking, what don't you have, right? But it's internal.
Oh no, yeah. For years, I dealt with anxiety problems. So I was 19 about. And it's terrible because you feel alone, and some of your friends get it, some don't. So they're like, "What do you mean? Like, you nervous for a test coming up?" It's like, no, it's something I can't explain. It's the sun's out, the birds are chirping, my friends, my family love me, but I can't get out of my room just because of this feeling I have. And for parents out there, their kids might ask for psychiatric help. I mean, I've been there before, and I think it helps at first, but I feel like a lot of psychiatrists will try and mask the problem and throw pills at it rather than get to the actual root. And something like coaching and actually finding the root cause and working on it from there can be much more beneficial.
It's just a different, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo any psychology at all, but I do believe that coaching works on the way you think.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mask the way you think, because I do think that medication can do that. Some people it's really important, but I think most people it's just a matter of how you're thinking.
Exactly.
And how to shift the way you're thinking.
Exactly.
And that's what I do love. That's why I do what I do, because it's worked for me and my children and my husband and my family members, and so. Yeah,
and then so for parents, I mean, my experiences, I'm lucky enough. My parents they would help me. My dad, he struggled with anxiety at the same age I had, and he beat it in his mid-20s, which is kind of interesting because I'm coming out of it in my mid-20s.
Right.
And the way I beat it was, I learned to love myself again. And you and I talked about this, and I think it all starts with the body. Your body is your foundation.
Right.
And if you're not healthy, if you're not active, you're not going to feel well.
Right.
If you're eating
imbalanced,
if you're eating junk all day,
not having your probiotics.
Yeah, and going back to social media with this, and not even just social media, with technology, we live in a world of instant gratification. Now we can go, on Amazon on our phones, and one click we can have our produce sent to our door. It's like, whatever happened to going outside and walking down to the local grocery store and selecting your own produce?
Yeah.
And
simple pleasure,
and you'll enjoy it more.
So would you say that it's more, maybe anxiety just really stems from just a deep focus too much on yourself than thinking of others, or is that?
I was told from a doctor that it was a genetic thing, but I don't necessarily believe in that. I think it would be caused from a multitude of reasons. For me, I felt like a pressure to maintain an image that people perceived of me in college, and that I didn't necessarily want to all the time, and it's definitely difficult. But to parents out there, just listen to your children and help them as much as possible. Whether that's through coaching, through hiring a private trainer, because I truly believe that exercise completely is I wouldn't say a cure, but it's pretty close.
It is.
Yeah.
And it changes. I mean, we're talking endorphins. There's a reason why everybody says exercise.
I was just about to say, releasing endorphins, and then, you get addicted to that, and then
it creates energy internally.
And then once you see your body start to change, it creates a snowball of momentum, and that momentum can't be stopped.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, you're in charge of yourself, your emotions, your life, your career path.
Yeah.
And
it is the foundation.
It is. So I believe it's the foundation.
And what's really important to get across, I think, is when we talk about our bodies, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about creating good energy internally.
Absolutely.
And that comes from moving, and it also comes from, I firmly believe, the way you think. And we are not trained in schools how to think so that we are feeling joy.
Right.
We're trained, our brain is however many thousands of years old, and we were trained to, look out for bears and tigers and hide and look out for everything that's bad that could happen.
Right.
We don't live in that world anymore. In this country, we have it pretty easy, so I think our brain is still trying to pick out all the bad things. So we need to retrain our brains to think for totally differently.
I completely agree. Yeah.
So that's great. Well, I really appreciate that. And then you were going to go a little bit into what you learned in school about social media and sociology. If there's anything you want to add about that. We did a lot of this in sociology. One thing I would recommend is we did a project in a virtual communities class, and it was called Disconnect Project. And for a week we had to do no social media, no phones, none of that, no technology, and it was really interesting. It was hard to do. It's hard to kind of like turn your phone off. Unplug, exactly. There's a book on it called Unplug. Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah. And it changes your perception a lot. And I have a buddy who does it from time to time when he feels it's necessary. And he'll just, you don't have to delete your account or anything, but like delete the app so you're not tempted to look at it.
Right.
And you wake up and you smell the roses, and it's really interesting. You get a whole different perception on life, and
it makes me think of presence. You guys have heard that word is going around a lot, like how to be present.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I coach kids on is what is presence,
right,
and what does that feel like? Because we're just, when we were young, the summers would last forever. We're like, oh, when's school gonna start? This is so slow, And you guys are like, whoa, it's going so fast.
Yeah.
At this, 6 years old, I remember my kids going, Mom, it's going so, like, the summer's over.
Right.
Because they just had so many distractions. And, how do you become present? And when you have the phone constantly beeping at you, you don't have that space to just be still and, notice that it's windy outside and sunny and hey, I'm with you, hanging out. This is so great.
Yeah, and there's another thing is, the beauty of social media is that it can connect us from different geographical locations.
Right.
It's like, okay, I want to see how my buddy Peter's doing. You know, okay, well, I can go on Instagram and, you know, see what he's up to lately. But, you know, that also takes away from me calling him and saying, hey, man, how would you like to get together for lunch and, you know, catch up and really get in depth about what's going on?
Connection.
Because on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever you name it, you know, are you going to post everything in your life? No. You know, you're not going to share your personal secrets and stuff
it's
like
all
that.
One-dimensional.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, on the one hand, it brings people together, but it also takes away from, you know, intimate friendships and relationships. The depth, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what we're all craving.
Right.
Is just that depth and that connection with each other.
But the biggest problem I have with social media is the studies that have come out that teenage suicide and mental illness is at an all-time high, and it's a direct correlation.
Direct.
That upsets me.
And that's because of the way these kids are thinking.
Exactly.
And that's why I am on such a mission
to
coach as many kids as I can out there, because if they can think differently about their experiences as a human being, they can completely live in joy.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's not like life is going to always be perfect. And again, I hate perfection, because there's no such thing. You know, it's just do your best in that moment. Just be your best right there. And I just really, you know, perfection is just a killer, toxic, bad thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think that the connection with social media is that it makes it look perfect. People are just perfect, which is so silly. The
false image, you know.
And I think you guys all know that. I mean, I think all of you are realizing that, but it still doesn't make that empty, scared, fearful, anxious feeling go away.
Right.
And so that's what I also do, is I like to go deep and be like, okay, what is the deeper fear that you're discussing? I mean, that you're in your head. What are you battling inside your head? And it's really interesting what comes up, because most of us don't really know until you're working with somebody who can really pull out that deeper stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
That helps you shift the way you look at it. Well, this has been amazing. I really appreciate it, and you're just the best. And you know, I know that, you know, parents out there are really needing to hear more of this. So we'd like to have you back. Whenever you think of something you want to tell us and how we can help, we would love to have you back, because we need it. We need it, and we need you. And you like to give, so you can give to us. So,
and like I told you before, you know, anyone, you know, you come across who struggled with, you know, anxiety or any mental illness issues, you know, I struggled with it for years, overcame it, and, you know, send them my way. I'm happy to talk to them.
Well, you might have a full email box or text.
That's perfectly fine, because, you know, a lot of kids feel alone in that, and
ashamed.
And ashamed, and there's nothing to be ashamed about.
No.
And it's perfectly normal, and there's an uprising in it right now, and I would love to help. So,
great. Well, we need your help, and we don't want anybody feeling ashamed or uncomfortable to say how they're feeling, because we all have those feelings.
Absolutely.
And everybody's hungry to learn about it so that we can overcome it. So
definitely. Really
appreciate your time and your heart and your openness. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Sweetheart. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you like it, honey?
Yeah.